Testing, 1, 2. Roger. Okay, we'll begin our budget hearings. Couple things, just housekeeping real quick. As we've got the assessor, property trustee, election commission, and then the partnership for family and children and adult services will be presenting today. As we begin, just keep in mind my ask. In past, during budget hearings, we get questions as why are we changing? It's not broke. And I brought it again today, which is my Sears catalog. This is a 1993 edition of Sears catalog. In 1993, Sears did not realize where they were going to be today because they had an idea that it wasn't broke, that it didn't need to be fixed. And that same thing can happen to government and departments within government if we're not careful. So I keep this up here as a reminder. And if you want to come shop in it, you're welcome to come shop. Just pay me because Sears no longer exists. But one of the things I'll ask you to do is when you do your presentation, keep things in kind of tailored towards 3 buckets. Bucket number 1 is you're obviously here because you're asking for a budget increase. So what we're going to ask is number 1 is if you're asking for an increase, what is that investment in? What does the investment relate to? What's the benefit of the service? What's the benefit to the taxpayer? What's the benefit to the employer associate within Hamilton County? What is the benefit? Second bucket is what are you holding the line in within your budget? Every department has something they have to hold the core line with. And so that's the main thing. So what's the benefit of holding that core line to the county, to the taxpayer, to the employee? Just what is that benefit? And then the third thing is this one's kind of the most confusing one because I think people think of it more in the business world, but it does relate to government as well. It's what we're transitioning from. What are we looking at getting a savings to the taxpayer because we don't do something necessarily like we either used to or maybe we don't do it at all anymore. So we're transitioning those dollars to something else within the budget. And I think that's probably the $100 million question that we seem to, I think we need to ask ourselves quite often. But so as you would, please make sure you we try to get everybody to relate to those 3 buckets within your ask, so that and that does help with questions at the end. So with that said, we've got I guess 5 of us up here in the committee meeting, so we will begin. Mr. Haynes.
All right. Thank you, Chairman. Marty Haynes, Assessor of Property. Happy to present our budget request. And it's split into 2 items. I think you all got the sheet. Our operational budget is an increase of $41,195. The majority of that, 50% of that, $20,000, is audits for personal property reports. We have somewhere in the neighborhood of 18,500 business reports that have to be filed each year with the county. The state requires us to have so many of those audited. We can either choose to do the audit or we can hire a firm. We believe, and it's been the history of the assessor's office, that hiring that independently outside, they would reconcile any differences. And when you think about it, with all the companies that have invested in Hamilton County over the last 10 years, just since I've been assessor, they're not all located here. So there's travel costs to go to their home offices to get asset reports for those businesses. We believe it's a much more prudent way to do those audits. And there's a company that we've contracted with long before I got there. They continue to do a really good job for us. So that's $20,000 of that. Print costs continue to go up. That's something we have to print and notify anybody when there's a change in value, whether it's personal property or real property. So those print costs are going up a little bit next year. We have some folks on the legacy pension plan. That's another $9,800 that we're looking at, that there'll be an increase in that. And then we've got some medical insurance costs that'll be included in that $40,000. Our total budget in this current budget is $4,502,079. Next year, we're requesting on our operational budget $4,543,274 for an increase of $41,195. And those four items make up the bulk of that. We're holding the line, and we have since I've been there. When I took office, we had less than 150,000 total parcels in real property in Hamilton County. We now are at 168,096. We had at the time about 12,000 personal property reports. We're over 18,000 now. So that one department has increased dramatically. The number of man hours required to do that has increased significantly on personal property, but real property is where we spend a majority of our time, and that's what I want to talk to you about with the capital outlay. And how does it benefit the public? We're asking for $500,000, $547,917 for data retrieval software. That does include a $250,000 installation platform that could be, and this would be something we'd have to work across county offices and departments, but that platform could be used countywide. The sheriff's office, EMS, other places could use it. I don't know that they would, but they could. And what that does for us, we have a lot of man hours. Here are just some brief numbers from last year, which was a reappraisal year, so it's higher than normal. But I want you to understand the number of contacts we had with the public last year alone. An informal review, that means somebody called and had a question about their property. We had over 7,700 calls into the office that resulted in a informal review. That's not a 5-minute phone call when you call somebody back, because they're comparing their property to their neighbors. Doesn't matter that the neighbor's house may be 1,000 square feet more, or whatever the differences may be. Those turn into significant man hours to start doing all the comparable sales and comparable type properties. Last year, we had 1,533 county and state appeals. Appeals have changed greatly since I took office 10 years ago. It used to be a rather informal. You show up out in our conference room. There are citizens that the mayor appoints and y'all approve. They sit on that board. They listen to the differences between the property owner and what our value is. That used to be an informal exchange of information. It's gotten much more formal. When it goes to the state now, there is a judge. I mean, we are in discovery mode when the property owner requests information. We've got to compile all that, send it to them. That's all done manually now. Commercial appeals. We have, where's my number? 8,000, a little over 8,000 commercial properties, 717 industrial properties. This year alone, in 1 year, we had 634 appeals filed to the state. Those all go to a judge. And when those commercial properties or industrial properties request an appeal, they're bringing professional attorneys with them, and professional, they call them MAIs, appraisers from the Mass Appraisal Institute, those folks who have professional designations. We've worked hard in the office. Chris DuBose is with me. He's worked really hard to get professional development up across the office. He and Caroline both just earned designations with our international organization. So what that does for the public, we're looking for fair and equitable. That's what you hear from every assessor across the state. You want to be fair and equitable. Most of the time, the appraisers, particularly in a reappraisal year or any year, we're not looking at who owns the property. We're looking to make sure we're fair. We have the county in residential only. We're just talking about residential now for a few minutes. We've got a clock running up there, so I'm trying to hurry, Brooke. I'm trying to keep you on time. So you have 5 areas, about 35,000 parcels in each area. When you're looking day after day after day after day at a computer screen, the numbers run together. What we're asking for with this capital investment, this is a data retrieval system. It'll pull everything in a matter of seconds, where we have to look at that parcel, then we have to go back, we have to pull the other screen up, pull all the other comparable properties that are near that particular home, and make sure that we're being fair and equitable to the person that is appealing their value. We do everything in mass appraisal. That's what we do to set the values. But when you call for a review, it's almost, to this point in time now, it has evolved to where we're basically doing a mortgage loan. We're having to do an appraisal like the mortgage folks do. So it's become much more detailed. A lot more information is available. For instance, Zillow, 10 years ago, Zillow, one day you would pull your property up, it might have you at 200,000. You pull it up the next day, you might be at 400,000. I mean, it was all over the place. Now it's much more accurate because they're using these same retrieval systems. It's coming. We know it's coming. It's being used a lot for infrastructure in larger cities with power distribution. That's one of the big areas. Think about EPB when we have power outages now. You know, you go to the grid. If you have power, you can go to the grid. You can see how many houses in a certain area. So that's what we're looking at, trying to define that as much as possible. Neighborhoods, we try to do everything we can by neighborhoods. We've divided those up manually over the last 5 or 6 years. We strongly believe that this system would help us to differentiate within a neighborhood. Commissioner Eversole, Commissioner Highlander, we know that y'all have a lot of growth. You've got brand new neighborhoods coming next to older existing neighborhood. How do you separate those two to make sure we're getting just the new as the opposed? Same thing. Well, I could go through every district here. I mean, in the valley, you've got Black Creek. I mean, they're still expanding at Black Creek. So you've got, yeah. So is the front of Black Creek the same as what's going in at the top? No. And differentiating that is cumbersome just from man hours. And that's what we're asking for with this capital request. And we think it is much more fair, transparent. It's more accessible for the public and makes values better. Not lower, but they'll make them better and more accurate. That's what we're looking for, is accuracy.
Okay.
Questions?
See no lights. So 12.2% increase, is that what equates to there, including capital outlay? Is that right? Roughly 12%?
I guess roughly. I've looked at it more as operating versus, operating 1.4%. So it's relatively stable, but the capital outlay is a big ask at 548,000.
Yeah. So. Okay. All right.
Okay.
The see no lights. Lee looks at things different than I do. I look at all dollars are dollars. Don't matter if it's capital outlay or expense.
Well, and I appreciate that. Where we don't have a lot of capital. I mean, we have some vehicles where capital outlay for us, generally, Commissioner, is new computer hardware. We just 2 years ago we put tablets in. When you're in the field and they're sketching at a new property, we're sketching construction. It helps a lot to have it there. Instead of having to make the sketch on paper, come back to the office, enter it into the computer there. So we're trying to take small steps. This is a big ask. We understand that. We understand that y'all got a lot of requests coming in the next couple of weeks. So anyway, we appreciate the time today.
All right. See no lights. Thank
you. If y'all have any other questions, you got my number. Shoot me an email, call me, whatever. Be happy to. Anytime you want to come to the assessor's office and just hang out for a day and see all the fun, come by. We'd love to have you. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. All right. Our next trustee's office, Mr. Hollander.
Yes, sir. Bill Hollander, Hamilton County trustee. Kind of proud to say in the last 16 years, I have not had to come up because I haven't asked for anything basically, but got a little need this year. I need to come before y'all. One of the small things we got, and I probably wouldn't have to come up just for that, but postage has gone up 7% since last year, and that's part of our increase. And we do a lot of mail out, as you know. I want to put these things in buckets. I'm calling them, Mr. Chairman, A, B, and C. Number one will be A, and I'm comparing 2010 to 2026. 2010, when I came into office, we had, as far as parcels, total 159,000. Today, we've got 181,000 parcels, so we've had an increase there. I'm putting all that in bucket A. Tax levy, when I came in 2010, it was 304 million. Today, it's 317 million. Put that in a growth and good things for the county and taxpayers. Business is good, but business is booming. Tax relief, I don't know exactly when I came in how many hundred they had, but today we've got 4,000 partials that's on some type of tax relief program takes a lot of time. Our ladies have to get so much information, a lot of private information. They got to research and make sure these people's income, just a lot to go into that to get them qualified. And we're always excited when we are able to help them to get on that. That would be helping the taxpayers, bucket A. Delinquent taxes. When I came into office, they was using outside sources for doing the delinquent tax research and all the things that went into all that. And we brought in a full-time attorney, and that full-time attorney that we got after we pay him is now saving the county $150,000 per year. That's the savings we got by making that switch. We got, I guess we could talk about that being in bucket A or C. Excess fees we collected in the last 15 years. Our office has collected excess fees of $160 million, and we have returned to county general after we operate our business, our office. We returned of that $160 million. We have returned $136 million to county general. We're proud of that, having the taxpayers, Hamilton County. That will go in bucket A, I'd say. Collections, as of the end of February, our collections for our 2025 taxes, we have collected over 92%. That is up $5.5 million over last year at the same time. Business is good and booming. That would be in bucket A. Phone calls. Just last week, I got my report, and we had 912 phone calls last week. I was honored to get to talk to 273 of them myself. We take pride in bucket B of people not having to wait. We try to get that phone. Sometimes we can't help it, but certain times of the year they may have to wait a little bit. One of my pet peeves is calling a government number and being on hold. So we try to get those phones real quick. Our staff, when I came into office in 2010, we had 12 people. We had that outside attorneys we was working for. Basically today we're the same thing. We've got 13, but we do have that full-time attorney, and I've got 2 part-time people. Basically the same on that. Holding the line, comparing, we try to hold the line, and I like to compare this. Whether in business or whatever, I like to see my competition. Hamilton County, we have 181 partials. We have got 13 people, 2 part-time. Nearby county up the road where the girls softball team is in #1 position right now, they've got about 235,000 partials and 3 times the employees I've got. We're proud of that. Bucket B. In 2010, $1 billion with a B dollars came through our office some way. Today, $4 billion with a B is coming through our office some way, coming in and out, flowing through there. To get to the main point of what I'm doing here today is what do I need? I need 1 more staff person. The total that's going to cost us with the expenses is about $45,000. And this is going to help us with our tax relief. Big job there. A new thing, and I guess what I'm talking about now is I'm going to put this in A, B, and C bucket, Mr. Chairman. This is a new person. What are we going to do? What are we changing? Okay, right now, starting about this time of the year, we're getting ready to sell folks' property that they still own. They still owe 2022 taxes. We've just sent out about 1,100 letters letting those people know this. And before we can sell their property, we have to do a title search. We have to let the people that have liens on it know that, with all that stuff. And we are now subbing that out to people to do that title search for us, paying them $100 for each one of those, a lot of money. With this new person, one of the things we're gonna be able to do is we're gonna do those title searches ourselves. And the county gets to keep that $100. The taxpayer will still be charged that, but we're gonna keep it. This is a person we're bringing in that's gonna make money for us. So that's what I've got, and I'm here to answer any questions.
Deal. I'm showing about a little over 2% increase in expenses roughly there, Lee. And I'm asking you mainly just correct, to make sure I'm calculating in my head correctly, so.
I guess it depends. Are you looking at the total expenditures or the expenditures less those covered by the salary, the
Less,
fees?
less covered by fees, just the
Okay,
total. I
sure.
went to your line that time.
I'm sorry?
I went to your line that time.
Okay, there you go.
You got to get me, Lee.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, Commissioner Baker.
Yeah, Mr. Hollander, good to see you, sir.
Good to see you, sir.
So you were just saying, how many title searches were you doing?
We do about 11, last year, to give you exact, I think it was 1,094.
Okay.
$104,000 we're spending out for that.
And then you're gonna offset that by a person who's gonna cost 45?
Yes, sir. And they won't be able to do all of them, but keep in mind that person's also going to be helping with tax relief. Some of this is seasonal. Like certain times of the year, I'll need that person to help the girls out the tax relief office at Swamp. And then sometimes in February, that person will be the fourth person. If any of you are out there paying your taxes this year, they're out the door, lined up. So that person would be the fourth person a couple of 3 weeks out of the year out there helping with that. But then in any other time, that person will be helping to do these title searches.
Okay. So, but you said that person was 45,000. Is that plus then and plus benefits, right?
Yes, sir. I believe that's right.
So that'd
Yes,
be probably, I don't know,
60 maybe.
60. Okay. And you said the person of the 104, if it's 60, how much of the rest of it will be that you contract out?
Well, I would like to stand here and tell you we're going to do all the title searches, and that's going to be our goal. And this person won't be just doing it by themselves. I'm going to have some others maybe helping too. But honestly, this will be our first year. I'd hope that we can get half of them or more done by ourselves. As I say, I'd hope that we might come and do them all, but it's just going to depend. I did talk to our attorney, and we are going to be able to start doing that a little earlier this year than we have in the past.
So if that leaves half, then of that 104,000 would be 50,000.
It's going to be a washout, basically.
Yeah, okay. So, yeah, because add the 50 and the 60 and it's 110, it'd be actually a little bit more.
Yes, sir. And one thing I forgot to tell you, and we'll have to talk about this to see if we want to do this. The $100 that we add this to the taxpayer's bill. We are the lowest I know of. Some counties are charging as much as 150, and we have the ability and the authority to go up on that. So we have not talked about 150, but I have talked about maybe 115 or 125.
All right, thank you, sir.
Mm-hmm.
Commissioner Graham?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Trustee Hollander. You do an awesome job.
Thank
And
you,
yes, I always wait till that last day to pay my taxes, so I was in that line. You saw me. I mean, I do it every year.
Yeah.
And it was very, very busy, very busy. What you're telling me though is by hiring this person, you're going to train them to be a multitasker. I mean,
Yes, sir. And this person that we bring in, we've got to work this out. It'll be after July when we do it. One of my part-time people may help with this a little bit, but yes, sir.
So really, you're gonna, and I love to see people that are cross-trained doing other things.
We try to do that. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. The fees that you bring in, will there be an additional amount of revenue with your fees that will help offset this price?
Yes, sir. I'd have to do. I don't know that we're going to be bringing in much more because of this, but I would hope we do.
Okay. I mean, do you, and I may have didn't hear you, but how many, how much in revenue do you turn in excess fees now?
We have turned in, ballpark is about 11 million a year. We've turned in 136 million in 15 years.
So it's about 11 million a year,
Mhm.
and you're asking for one employee.
Yes, sir.
And
Yeah.
I mean, I'm just trying to put it in perspective. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? What's coming in and what you're doing and how you're being in business, how you're producing the product, right? So, and you
Yes,
have a
sir.
person that's multitasking, you're producing many products with one more entity.
That's right. That's what I try to look at this as a business. Business is booming. I mean, hey, just think about the parcels are up, the tax levy is up, everything is up. Hamilton County is doing great, and we're glad to be a part of that.
Well, thank you for your service to the county. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Chairman. The two gentlemen said most of what I was going to say prior to this, but just in a nutshell, basically you're thinking this year, the first year, we'll kind of break even ballpark, you think? Then
Yes, sir.
after that, we should enhance the income from that.
Yes, sir. Yes,
Well,
sir. That's right.
That's the way I understood it, and I appreciate that. And my wife tells me only women can multitask, so you're going to look at hiring a woman maybe? I'm
It
joking.
probably-
I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
Yeah.
But thank you, sir. We appreciate you. very
I'm
much.
losing a woman that's been with us 50 years down there.
Oh, my goodness.
So I'll probably have to hire about 3 to replace
Oh,
that
yeah.
knowledge.
I'm
And,
sure.
and hopefully this person will keep some of my people from having to stay here at 6 o'clock at night.
Right.
Yeah.
Do you have certain job specifications and training that they have to have, or is it someone's already in you think you maybe do someone already in the office, going from part-time to full-time?
Some of them that's already there, maybe part-time, we might train them, but we're going to be training another one in this. Mr. Graham said, we do a lot of cross-training.
Right. Right. Thank you, sir. We appreciate your service.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You remind the DS up here, we've got allotted time for each presentation. So Commissioner Shipley, if you got something to add, a question?
I'll be brief. The number you put out, amount you've increased pretty cheap fast.
Yeah.
Thank you, Bill.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Hollander, thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Y'all have a great day.
Thank you. We have the Election Commission.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. I'm here for my every couple year increase ask for elections. As you know, elections happen every couple years, big elections. So every couple years I have to come before you and ask for an increase. Years where there are no elections, obviously our budget drops back down to normal range. So got a little presentation here of what we're kind of asking for in this election, kind of where we're at, what we're doing. As I said, last year's budget funded one election. This year we'll end up funding 2 elections, the county general state primary in August, and the state general election in November. So those 2 elections we're expecting to be pretty big elections. There's an open governor seat this year, as you all know, and there's a lot of independents running, which pushes our ballot to a larger size, which increases paper costs, printing costs, storage costs. So 17-inch ballots is the largest we can go, and that's probably what we're looking for in November, just based on the number of independent candidates that will be on the ballot running for governor this year. The proposed budget's 32% higher than last year, but it is consistent with our increase, our every other year increase. Just for a little note here, the May 26th election, the one we're about to have, the county primary, was funded completely by the state of Tennessee. So our office is going to get back about $400,000. I'm sorry, not our office. It will go straight to the county. We don't receive any income in our office, but $400,000 will be returned to the county for this May election, which has never been done before. The state legislative delegation decided to fund this election for whatever reason. We weren't given clear reasons, but we just said, we'll take it. You're going to pay us $400,000 to hold this election, being a county election, not a state election, we'll take it. So we were happy to hear that. Also, this morning, the County Election Commission met and they voted to not move forward at this time with any additional early voting sites. There was discussion at our last meeting about adding two possible sites, one site possibly on Signal Mountain, one in the St. Elmo area, with the two areas being discussed based on some data. The chairman and commission decided to table that. So my budget can be reduced by a couple $100,000 because that is not going to be taking place anytime soon. That can be removed.
Did you catch that, Lee?
Yes,
Okay.
I piqued my interest there.
Sure. Yeah, the reduction. Yeah, absolutely. Our office is currently staffed at 100%. We're not asking for any additional employees. Instead, we're doing some restructuring on our current position, updating responsibilities to meet new state requirements and programs coming down the pipeline to our office that are going to require a lot more legwork on our end when it comes to registering voters. Coming in probably 27, it has to be implemented by 28, but coming in 27, likely it will be. Our office will have to cross-reference every new voter who registers with the state database with the felons and citizenship status. So that's going to be thousands of registrations that our office is going to have to check on the front end now. Instead of running them through an automated state database, they're going to have to be checked initially before the person can even register. So that's coming down the pipeline. So we're kind of doing some restructuring to prepare for that, and which leads me to our next slide here. Some of the increases here, 5% is staff raises. The election commission voted for a 3.5 across the board increase for the election commission employees. That was something the chairman feels is a fair cost of living increase. So the commission, when I say commission, I mean the election commission voted on that at one of their recent meetings. So I'm passing that along in my budget. The other big item here, which I really hope you'll consider, is a pay increase for our poll workers. We've increased pay for our poll workers in 2007 and 2017, and this is FY27. So it makes sense that it's time for us to kind of look into that and invest in our poll workers. For example, we have what we call our officer of election who leads polling place on election day. Shelby County pays their officers $390. Davidson pays $275. Knox $245. Rutherford $250, and Williamson $235. We're asking for an increase for that position from $165 to $225, which would still be below some of the larger counties and counties that are even smaller than us. But really hope you'll consider that. And if that does get passed in the budget, I will have to come back for a resolution because that item has to be approved via resolution by this body. It cannot be approved by the election commission alone. So I really hope you'll consider that. It'll bring us a lot closer to comparable jurisdictions. The other increase is simply just election operations. As I said, the open governor seat, 8 municipalities will hold their elections in November. Supplies and equipment maintenance, general election costs, which includes audits, ballots, equipment delivery, legal notices, postage, which I'm sure you all know has gone up, and the increased ballot size in November of 17. I'm sorry, November of 26 with a 17-inch ballot. We're improving accountability by centralizing all purchasing. We've assigned one staff member to now manage all purchases. Member of management must approve all purchases. They do active price comparison, improve inventory tracking, and reallocate funds when needed. And these changes will help ensure the responsibility of taxpayer dollars. Actively modernizing our process to increase productivity without increasing staff, updating, consolidating job responsibilities, reorganizing office workflows. And another big thing we're doing is developing a poll worker mobile application. We're working with a third-party company to develop that. It will be the first of its kind, I know, in the state, maybe in the country, because of all the features it has. And that is being developed for us. It will allow us to reduce training costs in future elections, because we'll be able to do training via mobile app testing via mobile app, and communication via mobile app. So that's something we're really excited about. Going forward, it should be live by the end of this year, we hope, if things stay on track. Again, elections are successful because of the people that run them. You know, your neighbors, your friends, that's who runs elections. It's not some, you know, scary man behind a hood. It's people in your neighborhoods. So we want to make sure that we do everything we can to treat those people fairly and retain in elections. A lot of what we try to do is retain workers, you know, and try to keep the best of the best staying with us, because it's a hard thing to learn, especially when you only work it 3 times a year, and then at a polling place you're put out there to be on your own. So we really hope that, like I said, the pay increase for the poll workers will be approved. Tennessee maintained its #1 in election integrity this year. Hamilton County is widely recognized as the gold standard among election officers in Tennessee. We work closely with Secretary Hargett, Coordinator Mark Goins, and other election officers to share ideas and always assist them where we can. So, after that, I'll take any questions that you guys may have.
Okay. Lee, where are we at compared to 2 years ago? You know, as far as if you compared apples to apples to 2 years ago, budget for this same cycle.
Are you talking with just the election commission?
Yeah, just election.
Well, actually, we did a comparison for 4 years ago, which is basically what state law requires us to have a maintenance of effort to at least
Right.
the comparative election. And this year's would be, the request is about 40% higher than it was 4 years ago, than what the approved budget was 4 years ago.
2 years ago, we had presidential election. This is just the governor.
Yeah,
governors
so,
and
so
state legislators.
again, we have that number.
Yeah, but you
but-
have more for, well,
Yeah, the main number to keep in mind, at least that we're legally required for, is 4 years ago.
okay. So we're looking at a 40% increase from 4 years ago.
Yes, sir.
And that also includes on here that the state is going to fund. Of course, this is the new year. So.
Yeah, it won't affect
Yeah,
what's
so not gonna
upcoming. It will affect what we're in now. But that was out of nowhere, so we're happy to receive that at least.
Commissioner Baker?
Yeah, this is for Lee. So what are we calculating as the cost of living increase this coming year? You can phone a friend.
And my
Bond is
friend
really
is
good.
sitting right next to me, but she probably, you know, I'm guessing, again, looking at consumer price index, I think is about 2.4%. Is the last I'd heard, but of course that moves every month.
Thank you.
Also, if I could, commissioners, I know this is looking ahead, but the next election cycle that I'll have to come before you for the election will be funded as well, because it'll be the presidential preference primary. So this election year is my biggest year in what's a 3-year period.
Mr. Highlander?
Thank you, Chairman. Very briefly, the Lee question, is that 40% for this time, does that include the 400,000 that the state's going to fund? Or is that figured in or not?
The 400,000, correct me if I'm wrong, is for fiscal year 26, the election that we have
Okay,
already
okay.
had, so it won't
Okay.
affect fiscal
Okay,
year
yeah,
27.
that clarifies that. Thank you.
Okay. Good. Mr. Sharp?
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. So we're playing catch up here from 10 years ago with regard to pay to poll workers. How much of the additional compensation for the poll workers is represented in that at 40%?
I believe it's 6.5%, I believe,
6.5% of
the
Yeah.
increase.
okay. Thank you.
Okay. That is all the questions. 40% is a big ask. And for sure, going into this election cycle.
Sure.
So,
We'll always do our best to work with whatever we're given. So,
Okay. I'm glad to hear that. So,
yes, sir.
but thank you. All right. Appreciate it. Thanks so much. Okay. We will transition to partnerships for family and children, adult service. Mr. Hyde, you got 15 minutes.
Okay, I hope to return some time to you. So Chairman and Commissioners, it's always a privilege to be with you and talk about the mission that we do on behalf of the people of Hamilton County. I'm starting with the next slide just with an update to this body, because this body also funds, next slide, please, the Hamilton County Chattanooga Family Justice Center. We are in the process of design with the timeline you see on the right of moving our Rape Crisis Center from its current location to the Family Justice Center and doubling our capacity. That is, you'll be happy to hear, being funded not by this body, but by the city of Chattanooga. So Chattanooga this fiscal year appropriated $455,000 for that. And we're looking for $600,000 for them to complete that project. That's a conservative figure that we'll be waiting for the city engineers. So this will be a great increase in collaboration in the Rape Crisis Center. And I'd just like to remind everybody that we run in this region of the state the forensic nursing program, where the forensic exams that collects the physical evidence without which it is very unlikely that there will be justice or a conviction of perpetrators and sex offenders. So our team provides that capability for the county and the city, and that capacity will be increased with this project. I'm not going to read this slide to you, and many of you that have seen my briefings know this, but I do want to talk a little bit about the triage here because it directly ties to our budget request. We're the Hamilton and Marion County crisis hotline for victims. That crisis hotline triages to the Rape Crisis Center that we just talked about, also to the domestic violence shelter, and for those that don't fall into that, to other services that we or others may provide. The numbers that here that you see represent a significant increase in workload. A bed night is a key metric in our shelter. It's a hotel metric, one person, one night in the domestic violence shelter. And you may remember me telling you before that of all those in our domestic violence shelter on any given day, including yesterday when I was there, are children. Over the past 5 years, we've seen a 72% increase in the number of bed nights in our domestic violence shelter. And that's not just due to COVID. Over the last 2 years, that should say FY 24 to 25, that's up 22%. Those are a significant increase in workload. I also went in and looked at the Hamilton County report that comes out every year. I did annualize the mid-year report for 2025 because that report is not out for fiscal year 25 yet, to show the crime rates for violent crime that directly correlate to crime against persons that we see in our shelter and rape crisis center. I cannot prove causality, nor would I try to do so, but I do think it is worth noting that as our workload has gone up significantly and we're taking on more of that burden, particularly during the critical 24 to 72 hours that the sheriff and chief of police in Chattanooga will tell us is the critical hour for that cooling off period that prevents death and other physical bodily harm. Our workload's going up while the crime statistics in that are going down. I wish I had the analytical capability to delve into that further, but I do think that is significant. Likewise, over the same 3-year period, workload is up, funding is significantly down. This body will remember last year that I said we were in the middle of a 3-year cut that would result in almost $750,000 decrease in federal funding through the Office of Criminal Justice Programs through the Victim of Crime Act funding. Well, that did happen, and our share of that from the state proportionally and the nation was $720,000. From FY 24 to 25, we actually had a decrease in funding. In FY 25, our fundraising from private sources increased by, if you see the number up there, I think it's 31%. If it were not for the green at the top of the bar on the right, we would have taken another $80,000 cut and probably would have had to decrease capacity that deals with that increasing workload with staff. The state stepped in because of the decrease in federal funding, and we received $334,000, which is our proportional share across the state, to keep our funding essentially even with FY 24. That funding is good for this fiscal year and next fiscal year, but there is no promise beyond that. So the bottom line is at the bottom of the chart. Funding is not kept up with workload and inflation. Here is the problem of what we are trying to fund. You need to understand one thing about the shelter in this organization. Within our building, there is the domestic violence shelter, which has 24 rooms. The crisis team that I talked about with that triage is separate. The same people who take those crisis calls manage 2 lethality assessment program rooms, or call them high-risk rooms, where we move people, and that staff, not the shelter staff, deal with those people. So those 2 rooms are always available, meaning they are not part of the domestic violence shelter and are never used by the domestic violence shelter. That is your shock absorber. That is our safety valve. Or if you look over on the left-hand side of this slide, in that first 24 to 72 hours, where we take those who have an active abuser in close proximity and have a high lethality assessment. By the way, that's a reliable and validated tool used nationwide with statistical correlation that if you score a high lethality assessment, you are likely to result in death to you or serious bodily harm. Probably worth noting that right now Tennessee is number 10th in the nation per capita in domestic violence and number 6 in the nation in domestic violence that results in death. In our own local newspapers, over the last few weeks, we've dealt with the former football player and the death of his spouse. And unfortunately, that one gets a lot of news press because of the notoriety of the abuser, but there are many others that do not. So what does that mean? Our crisis staff, when they answer the hotline, they have to triage based on their assessment of how likely it is someone is going to be killed. Last year, of the 102,004 total crisis hotline that dealt with domestic violence, we had 263 calls where our shelter was at operational capacity and we could not take them in our shelter. We moved them to those crisis rooms and we had 72 hours to find a place for them. We do that because we're able to do it. We are part of a nationwide consortium where we can see every opening in every domestic violence shelter nationwide. Unfortunately, those openings are too few, and we often move people. Not that long ago, we moved somebody to Washington State to stay with a family member to get them out of harm's way. 46 people were identified as high risk and eligible. The next 30 to 50, that's our judgment call. They did not receive those rooms. And those are people whose lives, by statistics, are at significant risk. You can read the bottom line. There's a gap in crisis services in those lethality assessment program rooms. By the way, we are the ones, along with the Family Justice Center, that train every police department in Hamilton County on this tool and how to use it. And we receive all the referrals directly from those calls that the police respond to in the county sheriff's office. So what is our ask? We're asking you to invest in our most vulnerable citizens. Those who have heard me speak at various forums around town have heard me say that there's a lot of great things going on in Hamilton County. We've heard some about them from your staff. I tell you, the measure is not in our property values. It's not in our big homes. It's not in our growth and revenue. It's how we value people. And I'm asking you to invest this year $330,000. And what that will get you is an extra lethality assessment program room. I made the same request of the city, and it will get you another crisis advocate, because that gap, when people call that we can't handle, they will be removed from harm's way. What are some of the statistics that goes with this? I have this footnoted and I have the sources for this, but you can see that there are significant costs. I'll also point to a county that's similar size to Hamilton in Florida, that they estimated in 2024 their cost was 38.3 million, and their rates statewide in Florida are lower than ours. We bring in 3 million every year for these services, and I'm asking for about a 10% investment from the county. We provide the other 90, and we are a really good value because about 40 to 50% of the communities, municipalities, counties across the nation provide this service through government. If you had to provide it, our estimate is you couldn't do it for less than 6 million a year. There are economic impacts that affect our workforce when domestic violence is at play. The bottom line there should be 96% instead of 965. So that is a direct benefit. And finally, what have we done? You'll notice that if you've seen our regular brief, we have 12 programs that span from children to the elderly, deaf services, and victim services. I have never been before this body asking for funding for any of those, as critical as they are. We define essential, as both mayors do, as something that if we didn't provide it, you would have to. So with that essential mission, here's what we've done. I've canned 3 programs over recent years. We've increased our fundraising last year 31%. We've made a lot of changes. We're moving the Rape Crisis Center out. I just completed a project funded by the city and by a state grant of well over $300,000 for infrastructure and capital repairs to our shelter. And quite honestly, with the increased workload, we have been doing more with less, thanks to some technological improvements with a new database management system, et cetera. But you know, we've reached the point where that's no longer an option. Doing more with less isn't going to cut it. So, you know, the counterfactual here is not conjecture, it's real. Over 50 high-risk victims didn't get the support they needed, and we're asking for your help to close that gap. Thank you for your time.
Okay.
What questions do you have?
So 32% increase in ask.
That's $80,000.
All right, Commissioner Graham.
I know we're short on time. I'll be very brief. Thank you for your service. You all do an amazing job, and I'm amazed every time I go out there. Thank you for your service. I heard you mention that you support Hamilton and Marion County. Is Marion County, are they, I hate to say it this way, but are they paying their part?
Yes, sir. They're about 3% of our cases. And in the terms of domestic violence and sexual assault, we have a separate grant that we received that kicked off this year that'll be actually setting up a satellite rape crisis center and a person that helps with domestic violence funded separately from any funds that we ask for you. So any funds committed here will not be helping there. About 83% of our total cases are dealing with residents of Hamilton County. The other 17% are sometimes we have to handle it, as does the district attorney in your county, because the crimes occur here for people who live in another location. And with that agreement, where we can ship victims to other shelters, if we had an opening, we can also take some in. That is a cost neutral. It's actually a benefit to us in this county because we ship far more out than we bring in.
Thank you. Thank you again for your service. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I certainly appreciate the work you do. It's almost like missionary work or ministry work, but it's direct impact on humans. You say you canned 3 programs now last year. What's the total amount of those programs?
It's over the last couple of years. One of them was over, we lost a elder program. We lost an elder volunteer program and an ombudsman program. And all total, the loss of those programs was probably $300,000. They did not directly impact the funding for what I'm requesting your funding for, but they did hurt the agency overall because a certain amount of those grants was an administrative cost that went to the overall good of the agency.
Yeah, quickly, so you canned them, not because you didn't need them, it's because you couldn't afford them?
A combination. Some of them were quite frankly losing money. And when we lose programs, I came in and took a pretty heavy knife to them when I got here over 3 years ago. And we've made, those are just 3 examples, but we've made significant other cuts so that we could refocus our staff and our administrative staff on our core functions.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
And Chairman Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Hyde, we've got about 60 seconds before we need to release here. So first, I'm so glad to see things are still progressing on the Rate Crisis Center. It's been a number of years in the making since you and I first sat down and planned this out. So very excited about that. Please do keep us posted. In short, again, for the entire presentation, the difference being $80,000, difference being in addition, just that 80,000 real quick gets you what that you don't have today.
It gets us an additional crisis advocate.
One person.
Total personnel costs. It gets an additional room that we carve out and outfit in the shelter. But again, it's a function separate from the domestic violence shelter. It's that crisis. And it's easier math for me. If you provide the funding and the county, it doubles our capability to handle those who call our crisis hotline, that we can move out for 24 to 72 hours while we separate them from harm's way and find a safe place for them to go.
Got it. Just wanted to be clear on the difference in the increase. Thank you, Mr. Hyde. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Hyde, thank you for your presentation. Lee, no more questions up here. I just want to say this before we end this and go to the agenda meeting. You and Vonda and Sheila, thank you. You guys have done an amazing job pulling this stuff together, so thank you. I see her there. I didn't see you, Beverly. Thank you. Beverly, you right the ship, you run the ship, so thank you. That's all I got.
All right. 2 minutes, well, meeting time. Anybody there? I thought that might get a vacate up here.